In the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, there stood a magnificent estate that everyone called the Golden Palace. Its owner was Chief Adebayo Okafor, a man whose wealth seemed to have no limits. His business empire stretched across 3 continents. Oil, real estate, telecommunications. Chief Adebayo had his fingers in everything that made money. People said his morning coffee cost more than what most families earned in a month. The mansion itself was a wonder to behold. 27 rooms sprawled across 5 acres of perfectly manicured land. Crystal chandeliers hung from every ceiling, imported directly from Venice. The floors were Italian marble that sparkled so brightly you could see your reflection. Outside, there were fountains that danced with water day and night, gardens filled with roses flown in from Amsterdam, and a garage that housed 12 luxury vehicles. But for all its beauty, the Golden Palace held a darkness that nobody could see from the outside. Chief Adebayo was 52 years old, a self-made man who had built his fortune from nothing. He grew up in a small village where his father sold yams in the market. Through hard work, intelligence, and a bit of luck, he had climbed from poverty to become one of the wealthiest men in West Africa. Despite his success, he remained humble at heart. He gave generously to charities, built schools in rural areas, and helped young entrepreneurs start their businesses. His wife, Chioma, was a different story entirely. Chioma was 38, 14 years younger than her husband. She was the kind of woman who stopped traffic when she walked down the street. Tall and elegant, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that seemed to dance with mischief. She wore only designer clothes, Gucci, Prada, Versace, and her collection of handbags could have fed a small village for a year. They had been married for 8 years, and for the first 2, things seemed perfect. Chief Adebayo showered his young wife with gifts and attention. He bought her a diamond necklace for their first anniversary that was featured in jewelry magazines. For their second anniversary, he purchased a private yacht and named it Chioma's Dream. He thought he was the luckiest man alive. But Chioma's heart had grown cold like a river in winter. She no longer laughed at his jokes or asked about his business meetings. When he reached for her hand during dinner, she would find an excuse to pull away. She spent most of her time shopping, going to spas, or on her phone, always texting someone and smiling at the screen. When Chief Adebayo asked who she was talking to, she would snap at him and say it was none of his business. The truth was that Chioma had married Chief Adebayo for one reason only: his money. She had never loved him. She loved what he could provide: the lifestyle, the status, the admiration of others. But now she wanted something more. She wanted all his wealth for herself, and she wanted to be free to live her life with the man she truly desired. On a Tuesday morning in March, a young woman named Ngozi arrived at the gates of the Golden Palace. She was 23 years old, fresh from the city of Enugu in southeastern Nigeria. Her worn travel bag contained everything she owned in the world: 2 dresses, a pair of sandals, a Bible her grandmother had given her, and a photograph of her family. Ngozi had traveled for 9 hours on a cramped bus to reach Lagos. She had never been to such a big city before. The noise, the crowds, the endless stream of cars, it all overwhelmed her. But she had no choice. Her father had suffered a stroke 6 months ago and could no longer work. Her 3 younger siblings needed school fees. Her mother did washing for neighbors, but it was never enough. The family was drowning in debt. When Ngozi saw the advertisement for a house-help position at Chief Adebayo's residence, she knew it was an answer to her prayers. The salary offered was more than her entire family earned in 3 months. She spent her last money on the bus ticket and arrived at the mansion with hope in her heart and fear in her belly. The interview took place in Chief Adebayo's study, a room lined with books and certificates. Chief Adebayo sat behind a massive desk made of mahogany wood. Chioma sat beside him, examining her fingernails with apparent boredom. Chief Adebayo asked Ngozi many questions. Where's she from? What was her education? Why did she need this job? Could she cook? Could she clean? Was she honest? Ngozi answered every question truthfully. Yes, she had completed secondary school. Yes, she could cook traditional dishes. Yes, She was a hard worker. She told them about her father's illness and her family struggles. Tears filled her eyes when she spoke about her siblings who might have to drop out of school. Something in Ngozi's honest face touched Chief Adebayo's heart. He saw in her the same determination he had possessed as a young man trying to escape poverty. He hired her on the spot. Chioma barely looked at the new maid. She simply waved her hand dismissively and said the girl could start tomorrow. That night, Ngozi wept with gratitude in the small room above the garage that would be her new home. It was simple but clean, with a bed, a chair, and a small window that looked out over the gardens. To Ngozi, who had shared a single room with her 3 siblings back home, it felt like luxury. Ngozi proved to be an exceptional worker from her very first day. She woke at dawn and worked until dusk, never complaining. She cleaned every corner of the massive house until it gleamed. She learned to cook Chief Adebayo's favorite dishes: pepper soup with catfish, jollof rice with fried plantains, pounded yam with a goosey soup. The food reminded him of his mother's cooking, and he often praised Ngozi's skills. But Chioma treated Ngozi with contempt from the beginning. She would inspect Ngozi's work and find fault where there was none. The floor was not clean enough. The soup was too peppery. The clothes were not ironed properly. She spoke to Ngozi as if she were less than human, barking orders and never saying thank you. Ngozi bore it all with patience and grace. She needed this job too desperately to complain. 2 months after Ngozi started working, something strange began to happen. A man started visiting the house regularly when Chief Adebayo was at work. His name was Emeka Nwosu, and he was nothing like Chief Adebayo. Emeka was young, barely 30 years old, and handsome in a dangerous way. He wore expensive clothes and drove a flashy red sports car. His smile was smooth, his words were smooth, everything about him was smooth like oil on water. But his eyes were hard and calculating. The first time he came, Chioma introduced him to Ngozi as her younger cousin visiting from Abuja. But Ngozi's instincts immediately told her something was wrong. Cousins did not look at each other the way Chioma and Emeka did. Their eyes held secrets that burned like hidden fire. Emeka began visiting 3 times a week, always in the afternoon when Chief Adebayo was at his office tower downtown. He would arrive around 2 o'clock and stay until 5, leaving just before Chief Adebayo came home. Ngozi tried to mind her own business. It was not her place to question her employers, but she could not help noticing things. She noticed how Chioma would dress in her most revealing clothes before Emeka arrived. She noticed how they would go into the master bedroom and lock the door for hours. She noticed the sound of laughter and whispers behind that locked door. She noticed how Chioma would spray extra perfume after Emeka left, trying to cover his cologne. One afternoon, Ngozi was dusting the hallway near the living room when she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Emeka's voice was impatient and sharp. "Be patient, my love," Chioma replied, her voice dripping with honey. "These things take time and careful planning. I'm tired of sneaking around like a thief. I want to be with you properly. I want the world to know you are mine, and you will have me soon. But first, we need to handle the chief situation." "What do you mean, handle it? You said you would divorce him." Chioma laughed, but it was not a happy sound. It was cold and calculated. "Divorce? And get nothing? Do you know what the prenuptial agreement says? If I divorce him, I leave with only what I brought into the marriage. That means nothing. All this wealth, this house, these cars, the businesses, I would get nothing. Then what do you propose?" There was a long pause. Ngozi held her breath, frozen in the hallway. What if Chief Adebayo was no longer around? Chioma said softly, "What are you saying?" "I am saying that if my dear husband were to die, I would inherit everything. The law is clear. As his widow, I would get his entire estate. We would be rich beyond imagination. We could be together openly, travel the world, live like royalty." Ngozi's hands began to shake. The duster fell from her fingers and hit the marble floor with a soft thud. "Who is there?" Chioma's voice called out sharply. Ngozi's heart nearly stopped. She quickly picked up the duster and hurried away, her feet moving as quietly as possible. She heard footsteps behind her, but did not turn around. She rushed to the kitchen and busied herself with washing dishes, her hands trembling so badly that she almost dropped a plate. Chioma appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes scanning Ngozi's face with suspicion. "Were you listening to my conversation?" "No, madam," Ngozi said, keeping her eyes down. "I was just cleaning the hallway. I dropped my duster. I am sorry for the noise." Chioma stared at her for a long moment. Ngozi could feel those eyes boring into her like hot needles. Finally, Chioma turned and walked away without another word. But from that day forward, Ngozi knew she had to be more careful. She had heard something she was not supposed to hear. Something dangerous. Something evil. Chapter 4. The dark plot thickens. Over the following weeks, Ngozi watched Chioma and Emeka more carefully, though she tried not to be obvious about it. The more she observed, the more convinced she became that they were planning something terrible. She noticed that Chioma had become intensely interested in Chief Adebayo's schedule. At breakfast, she would ask him detailed questions. What time was his meeting with the oil minister? Would he be working late? Was he traveling to Abuja next week? When would he be back? Chief Adebayo, who had been starved for his wife's attention for so long, was thrilled by her sudden interest. He thought perhaps their marriage was improving. He answered all her questions with enthusiasm, happy that she seemed to care about his life again. But Ngozi saw the truth. Chioma was not asking because she cared. She was gathering information, planning something. One evening, Ngozi was taking out the trash when she passed by the master bedroom window. The curtains were partially open, and she could see Chioma inside, talking on her phone. Ngozi should have kept walking, but something made her pause. "I found someone who can help us," Chioma was saying into the phone. "A specialist. He says it will look completely natural, like a heart attack or stroke. No one will suspect anything." Ngozi's blood turned to ice. "Yes, it costs a lot of money, but we will have much more once it is done. Trust me, Emeka, this is the only way. The prenup leaves me no other choice." Ngozi heard enough. She hurried away from the window, her mind racing. They were not just talking about leaving Chief Adebayo. They were planning to kill him, murder him for his money. That night, Ngozi could not sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with what she should do. Should she tell Chief Adebayo? But what if he did not believe her? What if Chioma found out and had her fired? Ngozi's family depended on the money she sent home every month. Without this job, they would starve. But could she stand by and do nothing while an innocent man was murdered? Ngozi remembered her grandmother's words. Evil triumphs when good people remain silent. If you know the truth and hide it, you become part of the evil. She prayed for guidance, for courage, for wisdom. She prayed for Chief Adebayo's protection. She prayed that somehow God would show her what to do. 3 weeks later, on a Friday afternoon, Chief Adebayo came home early from work. This was unusual. He normally worked until 7 in the evening, but today he arrived at 4 o'clock. He looked exhausted and stressed. "There has been a crisis at the company," he told Chioma as he loosened his tie. "One of our major contracts fell through. We lost millions. I have a terrible headache. I need to lie down and think about how to handle this." For a brief moment, something flashed in Chioma's eyes. Something dark and excited. But it passed so quickly that Chief Adebayo did not notice. "You poor thing," Chioma said with false sympathy. "Go rest, my dear. I will bring you something to help you feel better." Chief Adebayo went upstairs to the bedroom. Chioma waited until she heard the bedroom door close. Then she turned to Ngozi with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ngozi, go clean the guest rooms on the 3rd floor. They are dusty and need immediate attention." "Yes, madam," Ngozi said obediently. But as Ngozi climbed the stairs, something in Chioma's tone made her suspicious. That false sweetness in her voice. That too bright smile. Something was wrong. Instead of going to the 3rd floor, Ngozi stopped at the 2nd floor landing. From there, she had a view down into the kitchen. She positioned herself behind a large decorative plant where she could see but not be seen. Chioma entered the kitchen and closed the door behind her, but not completely. There was a small gap. Through that gap, Ngozi watched everything. Chioma took down Chief Adebayo's favorite mug from the cabinet. It was a handmade ceramic mug from Ghana with beautiful traditional designs. Chief Adebayo treasured it because it had been a gift from his late mother. Chioma filled the electric kettle with water and switched it on. She prepared tea with a tea bag, honey, and lemon, exactly the way Chief Adebayo liked it. She stirred it carefully. Then Chioma looked around the kitchen suspiciously. She walked to the door and peered out into the hallway. Satisfied that no one was watching, she returned to the counter. From her expensive designer handbag, Chioma pulled out a small vial. It was no bigger than her thumb, with a dark glass body and a silver cap. She held it up to the light, and even from her hiding place, Ngozi could see the clear liquid inside. Chioma unscrewed the cap carefully. She tilted the vial over the mug of tea. Clear liquid dripped out, 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops for drops. Then she screwed the cap back on and returned the vial to her handbag. She picked up a spoon and stirred the tea thoroughly, around and around until the poison was completely dissolved and invisible. The tea looked perfectly normal. No one could tell that anything was wrong with it. Chioma lifted the mug to her nose and smelled it. She smiled with satisfaction. Then she placed the mug on a tray with a small plate of biscuits and a napkin. Ngozi's entire body was shaking. She had just witnessed Chioma poisoning Chief Adebayo's tea. This was it. This was the moment they had been planning. They were going to kill him today. Chioma picked up the tray and walked out of the kitchen, heading toward the stairs. Her high heels clicked on a marble floor with each step. Click, click, click. The sound of death approaching. Ngozi knew she had only seconds to act. If Chief Adebayo drank that tea, he would die. The poison would kill him, and Chioma would become a wealthy widow. She and Emiko would get everything, and Chief Adebayo, a good man who had helped so many people, would be gone. Ngozi could not let that happen. Ngozi flew down the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it would burst from her chest. She had never been so frightened in her entire life, but she knew what she had to do. Chioma reached the bedroom door and knocked gently. "My dear, I brought you some tea," she called out sweetly. "It will help with your headache. Come in." Chief Adebayo's tired voice responded from inside. Chioma pushed open the door with her shoulder, balancing the tray carefully. She walked into the bedroom, where Chief Adebayo was lying on the bed, his eyes closed, his face showing the strain of his business troubles. "You're so good to me," he said without opening his eyes. "Thank you, Chioma." Chioma approached the bed with slow, deliberate steps. She held the tray steady, the poisoned tea sitting innocently in its beautiful mug. Just a few more seconds, and it would be in his hands. Just a few minutes after that, and he would be dead. "Here, my dear husband," Chioma said, her voice dripping with false tenderness. "Drink it while it's hot. You will feel so much better." Chief Adebayo reached out his hand toward the mug. And that was when Ngozi burst through the door like a hurricane. "Stop!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. "Master, please. Don't drink it. Don't drink that tea. Please, sir, I beg you." The sound of her scream seemed to freeze time itself. Chief Adebayo's hand stopped in midair. Chioma's eyes went wide with shock and rage. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. What is the meaning of this? Chioma shrieked, her carefully composed mask falling away to reveal pure fury. "Have you gone mad? How dare you burst into this room and scream like a lunatic? Chief Adebayo, this girl is crazy. She must be fired immediately." But Ngozi was not intimidated. She had come too far to stop now. She looked directly at Chief Adebayo, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, please listen to me. Your wife put poison in that tea. I saw her with my own eyes. She took a small bottle from her bag and poured liquid into your tea in the kitchen. Please, sir, do not drink it. It will kill you." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Chief Adebayo sat up slowly in bed, his headache forgotten. He looked at the mug of tea, then at his wife, then at Ngozi. His face showed confusion, disbelief, and the beginning of terrible understanding. "Ngozi," he said carefully, "this is a very serious accusation. Are you absolutely certain of what you are saying?" "Yes, sir. I swear on my father's life. I was hiding on the stairs, and I watched her do it. The bottle is still in her handbag. It is a small dark glass bottle with a silver cap. If you look at her bag, you will find it. Please, sir, I'm telling the truth." Chioma's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. "She is lying," Chioma shouted. "This village girl is trying to destroy our marriage. She is jealous of me. She wants you for herself. I have seen the way she looks at you. Chief, you cannot believe her. Look at her. She is nothing but a poor, ignorant girl. Why would you believe her over your own wife?" But Chief Adebayo was a businessman who had survived in a cutthroat world by reading people. He had not become a billionaire by being foolish or naive. And right now, he was reading his wife's face like an open book. He saw the panic in her eyes. He saw the sweat forming on her forehead despite the air conditioning. He saw her hands trembling. He saw the way her tongue darted out to wet her lips nervously. These were not the reactions of an innocent woman falsely accused. These were the reactions of someone who had been caught. Chief Adebayo stood up from the bed. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a lion that has spotted its prey. His eyes never left Chioma's face. "Give me the tray," he said quietly. "No," Chioma said, clutching it tighter. "This is ridiculous. I am your wife. How can you doubt me?" "I said give me the tray." His voice was harder now, commanding. This was the voice that made business rivals tremble. Chioma tried to hold on, but Chief Adebayo was stronger. He pulled the tray from her hands. Some of the tea sloshed over the side of the mug and splashed onto the silver tray. "Where's your handbag?" Chief Adebayo asked, his voice dangerously calm. "You cannot go through my personal belongings. I have a right to privacy." "Where is your handbag?" The shout echoed through the mansion. Chioma flinched as if she had been slapped. Chief Adebayo spotted the designer handbag on the dresser. He walked toward it with purposeful strides. Chioma tried to get there first, but he pushed her aside, not roughly, but firmly. He opened the handbag and began pulling things out. Lipstick, powder compact, perfume, wallet, phone, and then his fingers closed around something small and hard. He pulled out a small dark glass vial with a silver cap, exactly as Ngozi had described. The room became so silent you could hear the sound of breathing, the tick of the clock on the wall, the distant sound of traffic outside. Chief Adebayo held up the vial, staring at it in disbelief. His hand was shaking. "What is this, Chioma? What is in this bottle?" Chioma's legs seemed to give out beneath her. She collapsed to the floor like a puppet whose strings had been cut. "I can explain," she whispered. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you tried to murder me. How you put poison in my tea. 8 years we have been married, Chioma. 8 years I have loved you, provided for you, given you everything your heart desired. And this is how you repay me? By trying to kill me." His voice broke on the last word. The pain in his eyes was terrible to see. Chioma was crying now, but they were tears of fear, not remorse. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. I was not in my right mind. Please, my husband, please have mercy." But Chief Adebayo's face had become like stone. He walked to the nightstand and picked up his phone. "Who are you calling?" Chioma asked frantically. "The police," he said simply. "And my doctor. I want this substance tested. I want to know exactly what you try to feed me. I want scientific proof of what you have done." Within 30 minutes, Chief Adebayo's mansion was filled with people. His personal physician, Dr. Okonkwo, arrived first. Chief Adebayo handed him the vial and the mug of tea. "Test these immediately," he said. "I need to know what is in them." Dr. Okonkwo took one look at the vial, and his face became grave. "Chief, I need to take these to my laboratory, but I can already tell you this looks like something very dangerous. If you had drunk this tea..." He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. The police arrived next. Inspector James Okafor and 2 junior officers entered the mansion and assessed the situation. Chief Adebayo explained everything while Chioma sat on the floor, still crying. Then Chief Adebayo called his lawyer, Mr. Chukwu, who had handled his business affairs for 20 years. When the lawyer heard what had happened, he arrived within 20 minutes, bringing another lawyer who specialized in criminal cases. While they waited for the laboratory results, Inspector Okafor interviewed Ngozi. He asked her to describe exactly what she had seen. Ngozi told him everything: where she was standing, what time it happened, how Chioma took out the vial, how many drops she poured into the tea, how she stirred it to dissolve the poison. "You are very brave, young woman," Inspector Okafor said when she finished. Many people would have looked the other way to protect their jobs. You may have saved Chief Adebayo's life today. Ngozi felt uncomfortable with the praise. She had only done what her conscience demanded. Inspector Okafor then turned his attention to Chioma. "Madam, I need to ask you some questions. You do not have to answer without a lawyer present, but anything you say can be used in court." Chioma remained silent, her lawyer having advised her to say nothing until he arrived. But Inspector Okafor was not finished. "We will be checking your phone records, your bank accounts, and your recent contacts. If there is anything you want to tell us now, it would be better for you. Cooperation can help with sentencing." At the mention of phone records, Chioma's eyes widened. She exchanged a look with her lawyer, who shook his head firmly. 1 hour and 15 minutes after he left, Dr. Okonkwo returned. His face was ashen. He carried papers with laboratory results. Everyone in the room fell silent as he entered. "Chief Adebayo," Dr. Okonkwo said heavily, "I have the results. The vial contained concentrated oleander extract, one of the most lethal plant-based toxins. The amount in that tea was at least 5 times the lethal dose for an adult man." The room erupted in gasps and shouts. Dr. Okonkwo continued, "If you had consumed even half that cup, you would have experienced nausea within 20 minutes, followed by severe cardiac arrhythmia, respiratory failure, and death within 2 to 3 hours. It would have appeared to be a sudden heart attack. Very few doctors would have thought to test for oleander poisoning. It would likely have been ruled as natural causes." Chief Adebayo sank into a chair, the full weight of his near-death finally hitting him. His wife, the woman he loved, the woman he had trusted, had tried to murder him in the most calculated way possible. Inspector Okafor looked at Chioma with disgust. "Madam Chioma Okafor, you're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to legal representation. Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." 2 officers moved forward with handcuffs. As they clicked them onto Chioma's wrists, she finally broke down completely. "It was not just me," she screamed. "Emeka was part of it too. We planned it together. He is the one who got the poison. He told me how much to use. You have to arrest him too." Her lawyer tried to quiet her, but it was too late. She had just confessed and implicated her co-conspirator. "Who is Emeka?" Inspector Okafor asked, pulling out his notebook. Through her tears, Chioma told them everything. Emeka Nvusu Healoa. How they had been having an affair for over a year. How they had fallen in love and wanted to be together. How the prenuptial agreement meant she would get nothing in a divorce. How Emeka had suggested there was another way. How they had researched poisons that were hard to detect. How Emeka had connections who could obtain oleander extract. How they had planned to wait until Chief Adebayo was stressed and tired, when a heart attack would seem believable. It all came pouring out like poison from a wound. Inspector Okafor immediately dispatched officers to arrest Emeka Nwosu. They found him at his apartment in Victoria Island, already packing a bag. He had heard through his contacts that Chioma had been arrested, and he was preparing to flee the country. The police searched his apartment and found more evidence. Text messages between him and Chioma discussing the plan, research on poisons downloaded on his computer, and a receipt from the person who had sold him the oleander extract. Both conspirators were taken to prison that night. The trial became one of the most sensational in Nigerian history. Every day, the courtroom was packed with spectators. News cameras lined the streets outside. Everyone wanted to see the beautiful woman who had tried to murder her billionaire husband. The evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Okonkwo testified about the poison. Ngozi testified about what she had witnessed. The laboratory results were presented. Chioma's confession was played in court. Emeka's text messages were read aloud. There was no doubt about their guilt. The prosecution argued that this was premeditated, calculated murder motivated by pure greed. The defense tried to argue temporary insanity and emotional distress, but no one believed it. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for only 4 hours. They found both Chioma and Emeka guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. The judge, a stern woman named Justice Adeyemi, showed no mercy. "This court has heard evidence of a plot so cold-blooded and calculated that it shocks the conscience," she said. "You, Chioma Okafor, took vows before God to love and cherish your husband. Instead, you betrayed him in the worst possible way. You conspired to murder him for money. You showed no remorse until you were caught." She sentenced Chioma to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Emeka received 20 years. As the guards led them away, Chioma looked back at Chief Adebayo one last time. "I am sorry," she mouthed. But Chief Adebayo turned away. There was nothing left to say. The marriage was formally dissolved. Under Nigerian law, Chioma forfeited all rights to Chief Adebayo's property due to her criminal conviction. She left with nothing, just as she had feared. But the story was not over yet. After the trial ended, Chief Adebayo called Ngozi to his study. She came nervously, wondering if perhaps now that the danger was past, he would no longer need her services. Instead, Chief Adebayo stood up when she entered and did something that shocked her. He bowed his head to her in respect. "Ngozi," he said, "you saved my life. Not just my life, but also my dignity and my legacy. If you had not been brave enough to speak up, I would be dead and my evil wife would be enjoying my wealth. How can I ever repay you?" "Sir, you have already paid me," Ngozi said, confused. "You gave me a job when I needed it most. Because of you, my father is receiving medical treatment. My siblings are in school. You have changed my family's life." Chief Adebayo shook his head. "That is not enough. Not nearly enough." He reached into his desk and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check that made Ngozi's eyes go wide. It was for 5 million naira, more money than she had ever imagined existed. "This is for your family," Chief Adebayo said. "Pay off all your debts. Build a proper house. Make sure your siblings finish university. Make sure your father gets the best medical care." Ngozi began to cry. "Sir, this is too much. I cannot accept this." "You can and you will. But that is not all." Chief Adebayo handed her another document. "I'm also paying for your university education. You are a smart, brave young woman, Ngozi. You deserve the chance to fulfill your potential. You can study anything you want: medicine, law, business, engineering. Whatever your dream is, I will make it happen." Ngozi could not speak. She could only weep tears of joy and gratitude. And finally, Chief Adebayo said, "I am setting up a scholarship foundation in your name. The Ngozi Foundation for Courageous Youth. Every year, we will award scholarships to young people from poor backgrounds who show exceptional moral courage and character. Your name will inspire others for generations to come." Ngozi fell to her knees. "Thank you, sir. Thank you. May God bless you abundantly." Chief Adebayo helped her to her feet. "No, Nosi. May God bless you. You are the blessing. You are the angel he sent to protect me." 5 years passed. Many things changed. Ngozi graduated from the University of Lagos with a degree in law. She became a human rights attorney, fighting for justice for those who could not fight for themselves. She moved her entire family to Lagos, into a beautiful house that Chief Adebayo helped them purchase. Her father recovered well from his stroke. All her siblings graduated from university and found good jobs. The Ngozi Foundation grew into one of the most respected charitable organizations in Nigeria. Hundreds of young people from poor backgrounds received scholarships. Many of them went on to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, and engineers. They called themselves Ngozi's children. Chief Adebayo never remarried. He focused his energy on his businesses and his philanthropy. He built hospitals in rural areas, schools in underserved communities, and training centers for young entrepreneurs. He said that his near-death experience had taught him what really mattered in life. Chioma and Emeka remained in prison. Chioma's beauty faded behind bars. Emeka's smooth charm meant nothing in a prison cell. They had lost everything: their freedom, their dreams, their future, all because of greed. On the 5th anniversary of the day, she saved Chief Adebayo's life. Ngozi visited him at his office. She was now a successful lawyer with her own practice, but she never forgot the man who had given her a chance when she had nothing. They sat in his office overlooking Lagos, drinking tea together. But now, Ngozi made the tea herself, and they both laughed about it. "Do you ever regret what happened?" Ngozi asked. "Do you wish things had turned out differently with Chioma?" Chief Adebayo was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city. "I regret that I was blind to who she really was. I regret that I confused beauty with character, status with substance. But I do not regret that the truth came out. If she had succeeded, I would be dead, and she would have gotten away with murder." He turned to look at Ngozi with warmth in his eyes. "You know what I learned from all this? True wealth is not measured in money or property. True wealth is measured in character, integrity, and the courage to do what is right even when it costs you everything." Ngozi nodded. "My grandmother used to say that a person's true value is revealed not in times of comfort, but in moments of choice, when you must choose between what is easy and what is right. Your grandmother was a wise woman," Chief Adebayo said. "I wish I could meet her. She passed away last year," Ngozi said softly. "But before she died, I told her everything that happened. She said she was proud of me. She said that she had raised me to be a person of honor, and that I had proven her right." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "You know," Chief Adebayo said eventually, "people ask me all the time why I gave you so much money. They say you were just doing your job, that you did not deserve such a reward. Do you know what I tell them? What do you tell them? I tell them that you did not just save my life. You restored my faith in humanity. In a world where people will do anything for money, you risked everything for the truth. In a society where people look the other way to protect themselves, you stood up and spoke out. You did not just save me from poison. You saved me from cynicism and bitterness." Ngozi felt tears forming in her eyes. "I was so scared that day. My hands were shaking. I thought I would lose my job. I thought you would not believe me. I thought Madame Chioma would hurt me. But I remembered what my grandmother always said, that evil triumphs when good people stay silent. And you refuse to be silent," Chief Adebayo said. "That is why you are a hero." "I am no hero," Ngozi protested. "I was just a poor girl trying to do the right thing." "That is exactly what a hero is," Chief Adebayo smiled. "Not someone who is fearless, but someone who acts despite their fear. Not someone who has everything, but someone who risks what little they have for the sake of what is right." News of Ngozi's story spread far beyond Nigeria. International media picked it up. People around the world were inspired by the young woman who risked everything to save her employer's life. She was invited to speak at universities, conferences, and gatherings around the world. Everywhere she went, she told the same message. Character matters more than comfort. Truth matters more than security. Integrity matters more than popularity. Young people especially resonated with her message. In an age of social media, where everyone seemed to care only about image and status, Ngozi's story reminded them that true heroism was about moral courage. The Ngozi Foundation continued to grow. By the 10th anniversary of its founding, it had helped over 5,000 young people from disadvantaged backgrounds receive education. Many of these young people went on to become leaders in their communities, always remembering the values that Ngozi had demonstrated: honesty, courage, and selflessness. Chief Adebayo eventually adopted Ngozi as his daughter in a traditional ceremony. He had no children of his own, and Ngozi had proven herself to be more loyal than any blood relative could be. When he updated his will, he left a significant portion of his wealth to Ngozi and the foundation that bore her name. "You see," he told her at the adoption ceremony, "God took away a wife who wanted to kill me for my money, and gave me a daughter who saved my life and asked for nothing. That is how I know that God is real and that justice exists in this world." 20 years later, 2 decades after that fateful day, Ngozi sat in her own office as one of Nigeria's most respected attorneys and philanthropists. On her wall hung a framed photograph of a young, nervous village girl standing next to Chief Adebayo on her first day of work. She looked at it often to remind herself of where she came from. Chief Adebayo had passed away peacefully 3 years earlier at the age of 72. He died surrounded by people who truly loved him: Ngozi, her family, the hundreds of young people whose lives he had changed, and the thousands more who had benefited from his generosity. At his funeral, There were no private jets or designer clothes to mark status. Just genuine tears and heartfelt tributes from people whose lives he had touched. That, Ngozi thought, was the mark of a life well lived. Chioma had been released from prison the previous year after serving 15 years. She was now 53 years old, broken and forgotten. She lived in a small apartment, working as a cleaner, the same job Ngozi had started with. Life had come full circle, but in reverse. Emeka was still in prison, with 5 more years to serve. He had aged badly behind bars, his good looks and smooth charm long gone. But Ngozi did not dwell on their fates. She had learned that justice was not about revenge or gloating. It was simply about ensuring that right prevailed over wrong, that truth triumphed over deception. One morning, a young woman came to Ngozi's office. She was 19 years old, fresh from a village, wearing clothes that had been mended many times. She reminded Ngozi so much of herself 20 years earlier. "Ma'am," the young woman said nervously, "I received a scholarship from the Ngozi Foundation. I want to study law, like you. I want to help people who cannot help themselves. But I am scared. I come from nothing. I do not speak English well. I do not know if I can succeed." Ngozi smiled and took the young woman's hands in hers. "Let me tell you a story," she said. 20 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. I was a village girl with nothing but hope and determination. I took a job as a housemaid. I was scared every single day." She told the young woman the whole story, about Chioma and Emeka, about the poison tea, about the scream that changed everything. The young woman listened with wide eyes. "You see," Ngozi concluded, "success is not about where you start. It is about the choices you make along the way. When a moment comes, and it will come, when you must choose between what is easy and what is right, choose right. Always choose right. The rest will follow." The young woman left Ngozi's office that day with tears in her eyes and fire in her heart. She went on to become one of Nigeria's leading prosecutors, known for her integrity and her fierce commitment to justice. She was just one of thousands whose lives were changed by Ngozi's example. On quiet evenings, Ngozi would sometimes visit Chief Adebayo's grave. It was a simple grave in a beautiful cemetery with a headstone that read, "Chief Adebayo Okafor, businessman, philanthropist, father." He measured wealth not in what he accumulated, but in what he gave away. She would sit by his grave and update him on the foundation's work, on the young people they were helping, on the changes they were making in society. "You were right, Chief," she would say softly. "True wealth is not about money. It is about character. You taught me that, and now I am teaching it to others." The wind would rustle through the trees, and Ngozi liked to imagine it was Chief Adebayo agreeing with her. The story of a maid who saved the billionaire became legend in Nigeria and beyond. It was taught in schools as an example of moral courage. It was told in churches as proof that good can triumph over evil. It was shared in families as a reminder that doing right matters more than doing well. But for Ngozi, it was simply her life, a life that had started with nothing but led to everything that truly mattered. Not because of wealth or fame, but because of a single moment when she chose to scream, "Don't drink it," instead of staying silent. That one moment of courage had changed everything. It had saved a life, destroyed a conspiracy, inspired a nation, and launched a movement that would help thousands of young people escape poverty through education and opportunity. All because one young woman believed that truth was worth more than security, that life was worth more than a job, and that doing right was more important than staying comfortable. Today, the Ngozi Foundation operates in 12 African countries. It has helped over 50,000 young people receive education. Many of them have gone on to become doctors, saving lives, lawyers, fighting for justice, teachers, educating the next generation, engineers, building infrastructure, business leaders, creating jobs. Each one carries forward the values that Ngozi demonstrated that day: courage, integrity, selflessness, and an unwavering commitment to truth. The story is told and retold, adapted and shared, translated into dozens of languages. But the core message remains the same. When evil plans in secret, good must speak out loud. When corruption hides in shadows, truth must stand in light. When greed tries to destroy, courage must protect. When silence seems safe, voice must take risk. Ngozi never sought fame or recognition. She never wrote a book about her experience, though many publishers offered her huge amounts of money. She never sold her story to Hollywood, though several producers came calling. "This is not about me," she always said. "This is about a simple truth, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose courage over comfort." And that, in the end, was the real treasure that came from that fateful day. Not the money, not the fame, not even the foundation or the scholarships. The real treasure was the reminder to everyone who heard the story that they too could be heroes. They too could stand up for what is right. They too could speak truth to power. They too could risk everything for justice. All it took was courage. Just one moment of courage. One scream that said, "Don't drink it," when silence would have been easier. One voice raised in warning when looking away would have been safer. And that one moment changed not just one life, but thousands of lives for generations to come.